Hi, welcome to Section 2. In Section 2, we're going to go into a little bit more detail about the different parts of the shoe. This is where people get confused a little bit because there's a lot of industry buzzwords about what different things are called, different marketing strategies and branding strategies that companies will use to kind of set their products apart from some of the other manufacturers out there. But the basic anatomy of the shoe is all the same, and we're going to teach you what you need to look for, what you may not need to know, or what you may not care about knowing, I guess. And we're going to kind of dive into that as we go along. Now we're going to take a little bit of a closer look at the anatomy of a shoe. So in Section 2, in the literature part of Section 2, we learned all about what consists of the upper, which is, as the name implies, the upper part of the shoe. We talked about the midsoles, we talked about the outsoles, and now we're going to kind of dissect that into a little bit more detail. So in a running shoe, we have a couple of different things that we're looking for. As we examine the shoe, we want to start with the upper. We'll go from the top down. So the upper is generally constructed as one piece, which is sewn together, usually sewn inside out, and it consists of a few of the specific parts that you'll see referenced in any sort of specifics when you look at running shoe websites and that kind of thing. We'll start first with the front of the shoe. The toe box is this part of the shoe. Usually consists of from the front of the shoe back to where the shoelaces start, and then the widest part where the ball of the foot comes around. When you're looking for running shoes, you want to have as wide of a toe box as you can so that the toes can actually spread and the foot can move naturally like it should. The toe counter or the toe plate is usually significant in terms of it's made out of leather or it's made out of rubber. There's a few examples here that we'll show. Some are very minimal. Some have a very thick toe plate as you go through. You'll hear a lot of different proprietary terms when we talk about when we see uppers on different running wear websites and so forth. We have they'll say things like no-sew construction or one-piece upper or synthetic mesh or something to that effect that will indicate that it's all smooth, it's all one piece, there's no rough seams on the inside and so forth. And that usually will be what you look for in the front part of the shoe because that's where a lot of the blisters and things will take place. Moving up towards where the foot goes in, we have the vamp. So the vamp is usually referenced more in dress shoes, but you'll see it sometimes in running shoes. If you're a person who has a very tall instep, meaning a very, very tall area of the foot right here, you may want to consider different widths and things in shoes. We'll talk about how the width is measured in upcoming sections. So moving on from that, we have the heel collar, which goes around the heel right here. The heel collar is very important to look at. You want something that's going to be soft to the back of your foot, just in case there's any rubbing or irritation there. The heel counter is something that's usually specific to the style of the shoe. Sometimes it'll be a hard plastic piece, sometimes it'll be foam, sometimes it'll be just some very thin fabric. The tongue is nothing special really, just the tongue of the shoe. On this particular shoe, you can see that this tongue is a little bit short, which is a little bit annoying. Whenever you start to tie your shoes, the laces will come up over the top, which is a bummer. The eyelets are where the laces go through. Depending on the number of eyelets, will tell you about how long your shoelaces should be. And the insole is on the inside part of the shoe. This one is removable, and we'll talk about insoles a little bit later, but I definitely recommend that you get a shoe with a removable insole. It makes it a lot easier. So moving down, we have the midsole, which is in between the upper of the shoe and the outsole of the shoe. The midsole is made up of could be made up of several different materials or a combination of those materials. The most popular is probably EVA. EVA foam is very, very soft. It's got a lot of cushioning properties, and it's not as durable as a polyurethane foam, but it's not as stiff as polyurethane. So EVA is the most popular choice for the midsole. The midsole is what gives that kind of cushioning feel gives that kind of smooth ride. This shoe has a really nice transition through the midfoot to the heel and back. So definitely like this. This is a combination of EVA and polyurethane, I believe, but it's a foam base, so it absorbs a lot of impact, but it doesn't get that compression set as easily as your traditional EVA midsole will. And there's a little bit more about that in the literature as well. Attached to the midsole, we have the outsole. The outsole is, on this particular shoe, a single piece, which is typically attached to the midsole before the midsole and the upper are combined. And the outsole is what actually comes into contact with the ground. It's important to know how to select a good outsole, and because that's where your tread patterns are going to be. If you're doing trail running, that'll make a difference in the shoe that you choose. You also want to look for any plastic or underlying support pieces in the bottom that could cause some dysfunctions as well in how the shoe transitions from the forefoot to the heel and back and forth. This shoe here is made by Innovate, and as we talked about, this is the exact same model as the red ones that we saw in the previous video. We have a decently wide toe box, but it's very narrow in the middle, which is probably the main reason that we have a hole in the side. This shoe has been cut in half so that we can see a little bit more about how this shoe is constructed. So if we look at this shoe from the side, we have the tongue, which I've just kind of attached up here so it won't get in the way. You can see that the upper, there's not a whole lot to it. It's very thin fabric, very breathable, not a whole lot of support. We do have some overlays here, but they don't offer a lot of support. The heel counter for this particular shoe is actually made out of foam, which gives it a lot of flexibility, but it helps kind of mold to the foot, makes it very, very comfortable. The midsole is probably a little bit hard to differentiate because we have a white and then a gray outsole, but the midsole here is very thin, and there's not a whole lot to it, which makes this a minimalist type shoe. These insoles here are also removable, and if we kind of get these out of the way, we can see how the upper is actually sewn into where it attaches to as one piece here. So there's a bottom to this. A better illustration would be this shoe. This is just the upper of the shoe, and this is a similar shoe to the gray and green ones that we showed in the previous video. This one has been separated as best I could from its midsole and its outsole, and this is the booty-like construction of the upper. So you can see how it was sewn together here, and then these are just compressed upside down, usually on a fake foot, which is called a last, and the outsole and the midsole together are compressed into the upper with some very, very strong adhesive. This is the midsole and the outsole of this shoe. We can see that it kind of lifts off here. The toe plate for this particular shoe would have been glued directly onto the front here, whereas the toe plate for this shoe is very, very thick leather material, which is sewn across the front, which provides a little bit more stability in that frontal motion there. And there you go. That's the basic anatomy of the shoe. That's how it's constructed. A few of the major things to look for when you're buying shoes, and maybe some things that you can't see from the outside of the shoe. In the next video, we're going to talk all about stack heights, how stack heights are measured, why it's important to look at those, and how they look in different shoes from the side.